Racial distress in America is not a recent phenomenon. It is the product of centuries of policy beliefs and systems that define human worth by race. To understand today's tensions, disparities, and conflicts, we must trace the origins of racial hierarchy from the earliest colonial encounters to the present. This journey reveals how racial distress was constructed, reinforced, and passed down through generations. And a lot of the questions that I have in regards to race, I would like to know where all this racial disparity, how did it all begin? And so I will have my questions answered today. And I'm sure many of you will have your questions answered as well. The reason why we have so much racial tensions here in the United States of America today, we will undress and we will discuss racial disparity here in America. So let's go to work.
Let's go. Let's go. Welcome to America Unfiltered. Overseer Ron. I'm looking at a nation. No spin, no filter. Just the truth. I'm looking at a nation. Standing at a crossroads. People chasing dreams while carrying heavy loads. Prices going up, paychecks staying low. Everybody asking where the middle class go. Turn on the TV, hear the same old fight. Left versus right, every single night. But out in the streets where the real folks live, people need solutions, not another negative. Working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Trying to put food on the family table to eat. Is the dream fading, or is it still alive? Yeah. America Unfiltered. Let's tell the truth tonight. I'm talking about what people need. Small town factories closing down.
Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to this episode of America Unfiltered. We are coming on today. Our normal time will be each weekday at noon Central Standard Time, but I had to bump it up on today, bump our time up so that I can make the show. Today we're talking about, where does racial distrust in America come from? And it's a question that I don't know about you, but I want to answer it because I'm digging deeper and deeper, and I'm trying to understand all of this distrust, racial distrust in America today. So in order for us to understand today's environment, I believe we must recap and understand and be knowledgeable of where it all began, where all this racial tension began. So before we get started today, as I do each and every show, the day is August the 12th, 2026. So I would like to start the show with a major event that happened in our history or in world history on this day. Okay, in 1898, on this day, the Spanish-American War ends on this day. On this day, 1908, Ford builds first T-model vehicle. Ford Motor Company completed first Model T, a vehicle that will help transform America, transportation and manufacturing. Also, on this day, August the 12th, in 1972, the last combat troops left Vietnam. The withdrawal marked another major step in America military disengagement from the Vietnam War. Also in a world event on this day, Britain and France declare war on Austria and Hungary. So that's a recap of important events that transpired on August the 12th. Now let's get into the show this morning. In our first segment, we want to know why and where and how did the racial distress begin. And I often wonder that. How did all of this, we see so much hatred and animosity, and people hate each other because of the color of their skin. And I've been curious. And I've been on a what they call a fact-finding mission. Today, you see me on a fact-finding mission. And what I'm trying to find out, where did all of this racial tension come from? So I've been busy. So I had to go way back down memory lane to find out where all of this even started. So in this first segment, I found out that racial distress begins with colonization. When the European settlers, now I want y'all to hear me this morning. Where did this stuff come from? Well, as I said, I've been on a fact-finding mission and I found out some things. Racial distress begins with colonization. When European settlers arrived in the 15th and 16th centuries, they brought with them ideas. European settlers brought with them, when they arrived here in the 15th and 16th centuries, ideas of cultural superiority. Native Americans were violently displaced, attacked, and subjected to policies designed to eliminate their autonomy. My. The U.S. government. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. The U.S. government has done some good things, but they have done some bad things too in history. The U.S. government authorized over 1,500 wars and attacks on Native Americans, creating a legacy of trauma and dispossession. Now, we want to know where all this stuff come from. There we go. When the European settlers moved to this country and took the Native Americans' land, and they brought with them a culture of superiority. In other words, they're superior to the Native Americans. So I often wondered in the state of Alabama, and I was wondering, the state of Alabama does not allow gambling, but the Indians can allow gambling because it's their native land. And I was wondering, why was that? So I've been on a fact-finding mission. Now I found out it was their land from the beginning. So we want to know where does this racial distrust in America come from? It started, they took the European settlers, took the Native Americans' land. So that's where it started. Now, by the early 1600s, enslaved Africans was brought to the colonies, the land that they took from the Native Americans. Lord have mercy. Initially, Africans, people, and European indentured servants all labored under harsh conditions. But by the late 1600s, laws began to codify permanent hereditary slavery for Africans. Virginia's 1662 law made children inherit the status of their enslaved mothers. And a 1687 law removed religious protections, shifting the justification for enslavement from religion to race. So we want to know, we look around today and we want to know how all this stuff started. This is how it started. Racial distrust in America started when the European settlers confiscated the Native Americans' land. And they brought a culture with them that they were more superior than the Native Americans. Whoa. So let's move to our next segment. We have the construction of racial hierarchy. By the mid-1700s, race had become a legal and social category. Colonies restricted interactions between whites and blacks. Now, so you want to know where this stuff comes from. Colonies restricted interactions between whites and blacks, creating a racial caste system. Africans were positioned at the bottom, whites at the top. These laws normalized racial difference and justified oppression. So now I was on a fact-finding mission. I have found out things that I wanted to know. Now we see why things are the way they are in America today. Now we see why and how. See, for Native Americans, the 1830 Indian Removal Act forced entire nations from their homelands. The Cherokee would march 1,000 miles on the Trail of Tears, where an estimate 4,000 people died. So I'm so happy that I discovered that I found what I was looking for on my fact-finding mission today. Why are things the way they are in America today? Racial distrust, racial divide. And where did it come from? It came from the European settlers. They moved in, took the Native American land, and they brought with them a culture of what? Superiority. In other words, I'm better than you are. You are less than me. This is where this stuff comes from. Let's move to the next section. Slavery, Civil War, and Reconstruction. Slavery expanded rapidly, becoming the economic engine of the South. Enslaved Africans endured forced labor, family separation, violence, and dehumanization even after the Civil War. Racial distress continued. Racial distress persisted because freedom was granted without dismantling the system built to enforce racial hierarchy. Let's move to our next segment. Segregation and institutional racism. The late 19th and 20th centuries saw the rise of institutional racism. Piacy versus Ferguson, 1896, legalized segregation. Court. Chinese Exclusion Act, 1882, targeted Asian immigrants. Federal Indian boarding schools, 1819-1869, attempted to erase indigenous culture. Medical exploitation, including experiments on enslaved Black women, and the Tuskegee syphilis study created deep mistrust. These policies reinforce racial distress by embedding discrimination into law, medicine, education, and housing. Move to our next segment. Now we want to know why things are the way they are in America. This is why we have so much division in this country, so much hatred and distrust in America. In our next segment, economic systems that entrench inequality. Racial distress is not only social, it is economic. Yes, it is. What about redlining? 1930s, denied Black families access to mortgages. Guess what? That's still happening today. Redlining. Believe it or not, when you go in a bank to get a loan or a mortgage, they want to know, but especially when you get a loan, where you live. African Americans, they will deny you. You can have the credit, but they still will deny you the loan. They will. Social Security Act, 1935, excluded many Black workers. Even the Social Security Act excluded many, 1935, excluded many Black workers. Labor laws favored white workers and unions. Even the GI Bill that started in 1944 was administered in ways that disproportionately benefit white veterans. These policies created wealth gaps that persist today. They were not accident, they were designed within a rationalized system. Oh, told y'all I am on my fact-finding mission today, and I'm finding out everything that I want to find out, I'm interested in finding out today. And I wanted to know, where does racial distrust in America, where all this stuff come from? And if you wanted to know, you're finding out today right here on America Unfiltered. The truth about the American history. And it's not being told. Now we can get our question answered. I got my question answered today. Let's move to our next segment, talking about the civil rights and the struggle for equality. The civil rights movement challenged segregation and discriminatory laws. Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. Declared school segregation unconstitutional. The Civil Rights Act 1964 and the Voting Rights Act 1965 dismantled legal barriers. But legal change did not erase racial distress. Housing discrimination continued. Schools resegregated. Economic disparities widened. Policing practices targeted Black communities. Immigration laws continue to shape racial dynamics. Racial distress evolved rather than disappeared. Now let us fast forward to today, because we're living in the modern day. So let's talk about modern structural racism. See, today, racial distress is visible. How is it visible? It's visible in health disparities, policing in the criminal justice system is visible today. Education gaps, environmental injustice, economic inequality, immigration enforcement. I know we're a nation of laws. And I know that people should come here legally. But everybody is due respect and to be treated with dignity, not as animals. We treat animals sometimes better than we do the immigrants. We treat animals better than immigrants. Everybody deserves to be treated with respect and dignity. So these, in our modern structured racism, these are not isolated problems. They are the modern expression of historical systems. Structural racism refers to policies and institutions that create disparity outcomes, even without overt racial intent. Racial distress persists because persists because the structure built centuries ago remain embedded in society. Believe it or not, let's move to our next segment. Believe it or not, racial distress is also emotional and psychological. Generational trauma, stereotyping. Come on. Media representation, social exclusion, fear and mistrust rooted in historical harm. Communities carry memories of violence, displacement, and discrimination. That's why they have the Jubilee in Selma, Alabama, every year, the celebration of Jubilee. It was trying to cross the bridge. Many of them was beaten on March the 7th of Montgomery March. He's dead and gone, the late John Lewis. To hear his story makes you cry. So, right in Birmingham, Alabama, where the water hose was turned, they turned the water hose on some African Americans that protested. Memories carry violence, displacement, and discrimination. These memories shape identity relationships. It does. And when we talk about racial distrust, because of things that have happened in the past, people distrust the government, distrust other people of different persuasion. You don't trust them. So today, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? That's an interesting question. Where do we go? Because I looked at and I thought in my mind that America has gotten better. But since we're telling the truth, I thought that racism in America has gotten better. On one hand, it has a little bit. So we talking about we America unfiltered, and we just gonna tell the truth about America. I think the election of the Donald J. Trump has made racism in America much worse. Policies, have hurt African Americans, Hispanics, whether they agree with it or not, but they've hurt a lot of whites as well. He didn't get elected to bring the country together. I think he got elected to tear the country apart and to have more chaos going on in the country. I do believe that his intent to start a civil war in the United States of America. And one of the things that I am baffled by is the J6 rioters, people who broke the law, who assassinated police officers, who trespassed on the nation's capital, were pardoned by Donald J. Trump. Then it gets more interest. It goes a little deeper. These people, he's trying to pay them for invading the Capitol. But you can't pay and help with child care. But you can have a fund. I think it's a slap in the face. It's a slap in the face. Not just Black Americans. It's a slap in the face to all Americans. And yet, we have some people that thinks he's right. That think this is the right thing to do. But yet, when you start talking about reparations, there's no money for reparations. For what our ancestors had to go through with slavery. Oh no, there's no money for that. There's no money for health care, to make sure that everybody have health care. No, there's no money for that. But there's money for senseless wars and pay the J6 rioters. And for him to get his family to get richer. That's what's wrong with America. And we have so many people that's so devoted to a party rather than doing the right thing. So many people devoted to a party rather than doing the right thing. We should not be so devoted to the party. We should be devoted to what's right and what's wrong. Not a party. There are some good things that the Democrat does, and there are some bad things that they do. There are some good things the Republican does. There are some bad things that they do. And we should be in the middle. That's what we should be. What side we should be on? It's not about left and right. It's about who is right. And who and what policies is going to benefit you. You voting and you supporting something that don't even benefit you. That's what's wrong with America. So we understand that the origins of racial distress is the first step toward healing. Solutions require honest historical education. Policy reform. What policy? All of them need to be reformed. They need to reform that Project 2020-25. That need to be that should be taken out. But what did it do? It targeted African Americans and poor people and the working class, because a lot of people, the federal government, people lost their jobs. That should never be allowed to happen in America. You're a billionaire, but you want to take other people's jobs. That should never be allowed in America. About economic investment, health equity, criminal justice transformation. We need the criminal justice to be transformed. We come a long way with the criminal justice system, but it's still a lot of work to be done. Cross racial dialogue. Just like me coming on here talking about this today. We should have more dialogue. Black and white folk should be stop talking at each other and start talking to each other. Stop talking at each other and start talking to each other. That's good and bad and everything. That's some good white folks, some bad white folks, good black people, bad black people, good Hispanics, bad Hispanic, good Asians, bad Asian. They're good and bad in every race. But if we want to move toward healing, move forward, we have to sit down and have these kind of conversations about, and people don't even know how, some white people don't even understand how black people feel. They don't even understand it because they didn't, neither them nor their ancestors ever lived through what blacks have lived through, are living through right now. So it's time for us to have a legitimate conversation. Stop running from it. Racial issues in America, people run from it and they don't even want to touch it. Why? Because a lot of people are afraid to. But we need to talk about it. We should have a commitment. That's when everybody coming together. How we move forward, how we make things better. We should have a commitment to dismantling structural racism. See, racial distress came from what? Deliberate systems. Relief must come from deliberate change. So, in my conclusion, on this day, America Unfiltered, I know I touched a very, 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 very sensitive subject: racial distrust in America. So, in my closing, racial distress in America is not mysterious. It is historical, structured, and ongoing, but it is not inevitable. By confronting the past and transforming the systems that grew from it, America can move forward and can move toward a future where racial distress is no longer a defining feature of national life. We can move forward and we can move towards a future where racial distress is no longer a defining feature of national life. I would like to see that day. I would like to see that day. But look where we come from. Look how it all started. It started from European settlers coming to America with the cultural superiority, that we're better than you. And we take your land, you Native Americans. That's where it all started. So when will it end, or will it ever end? It can end if the people want it to end. But some folks like that. They like to feel like they're superior to other folk, which they're not. So I've accomplished, I believe, today, and I've accomplished my fact-finding mission to find out where did all this racial distrust this trust in America come from? I found out, and I found the answer, and I have shared the answer with you on today. So if you have liked the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, you be well.
Overseer